Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today is day 19 of Vlogmas, and I'm just going to be talking to you guys about something that has been happening the last couple months in my life, which is kind of exciting. If you follow me on Twitter, you already know a lot about this, but I've been meaning to make a video about it for quite some time and just never got around to doing it, so I thought I'd do it now. Basically, I'm learning to drive. So obviously it was my birthday in September and I turned 17, which is the age requirement in order to be able to learn to drive here in the UK, and I had my first lesson a couple weeks after my birthday, and I've been having weekly lessons ever since. All my lessons are 2 hours long, and they're normally on Fridays, my day off from college, in the mornings, and I've made a lot of progress. It's taken a while. I can safely say I can drive now. I wouldn't say I can drive safely, and I'm definitely nowhere near being able to do my test, but I can drive. Just make sure the instructor's in the car and has dual control, and we're all good. Sorted. So, driving. My instructor is this guy, and he's really nice and awesome, and yeah, he's really good at teaching the driving and stuff. So my first driving lesson was actually really good. All he taught me to do was to start and stop the car, like drive away and then pull over, and by the end of the lesson I was actually driving around the block. I didn't stall once. I think my instructor was really impressed with it, because afterwards my mum had to ring him up to ask him about payment and stuff, and he said that I have a natural flair and that I'm just naturally really good at driving. He probably changed his mind after the second lesson, but it's really weird because a couple months ago I was like so set on not learning to drive. I was like, it's fine, I don't really need it because I want to live in London, I'll just use the underground, there's public transport, I don't need to learn to drive, I'm not going to, I don't want to. That all changed overnight when I had a sleepover meeting my internet best friend for the first time. Vlog is up on my channel, go check it out. My internet friend, she can drive, she's passed her test, she has her own car, and so when I visited her we ended up driving around everywhere, and obviously she was driving around and stuff, and I don't know what it was, but about the weekend is like we went to KFC 3 times because we could just drive there, and you know, we had so much freedom just driving wherever we wanted, and I just like was watching her drive the whole time and like, you know what, maybe I will learn to drive. And so literally just that one sleepover with my friend who can drive, and suddenly I'm like really wanting to drive. So I don't know why it changed my mind so quickly, but it did. On my birthday, one of my presents was the date for my first driving lesson, which was a nice surprise, and I was really excited about it. I was also nervous because I really shouldn't be trusted to drive. So my second lesson didn't go as well as the first lesson. I did stall the car multiple times. That wasn't my worst lesson though. I've had a lot of very bad lessons to EH. So I've had like a number of different like things I've needed to work on in that each lesson. The first thing that I struggled with was steering. Apparently I cannot steer. Like, steering's supposed to be like the easiest thing when you drive, but no, I could not steer for the life of me. Luckily I can steer now. Then my second issue was staying in my own lane. All it was we were driving down roads and there'd obviously be lots of parked cars. I would obviously have to go around them and end up in the other lane. And because there weren't any cars coming, I just stayed in that lane instead of having to go in, out, in, out, in, out. I just stayed in that lane. And then at the end of the lesson, the instructor was like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, damn, okay. But that's, again, not an issue now. Because you got to think at this point in time, the fastest I ever drove, I might go up to like, I would have gone up to 20 miles an hour for like a second, but really I wasn't going over 15 miles an hour. But then this was my third issue. Once we got my steering and staying in my own lane sorted, the next issue was speed, because I went really slowly. I just didn't like going fast because I was like, the faster I go, the more likely I'm gonna crash and die and kill everyone, and it's gonna end really badly. Because it's weird, because when you're a passenger in the car, you'll like go on like the dual carriageway or a motorway at like, they're driving at like 70 miles an hour and you're like, okay, this is cool. And then you go back to a town and you have to go at like 30 miles an hour and you're like, oh my god, this is so slow. But when you then start learning to drive and you're the one in control, 30 miles an hour feels a lot faster and more terrifying. The way he solved the issue was he got me to drive from one town back to my hometown, which is like a half hour, 20-minute long drive, and it involves going on dual carriageways and 60-mile-an-hour roads and all sorts of that. And he just got me to drive home one day. It made me go faster. I actually went up to 70 miles an hour on the dual carriageway. That's fast. But then by the end of it, 30 miles an hour was so slow, and I'm too cautious about checking to see if I'm speeding or not, because then I focus more on the speedometer than I do on the road. At one point we were going down the dual carriageway, but the instructor had to grab my wheel because I was so focused on making sure I didn't go over 70 miles an hour that I just ended up subconsciously steering towards the other lane. That would have ended badly. Literally the number of times my instructor has grabbed my wheel. If he wasn't in the car with me, I'd be dead right now. Like, there have been a number of times I have accidentally sped, but it's only by like 2 miles an hour, and then I see, I'm like, oh no, I'm being illegal, and then I brake and slow down and it's fine. All of these issues were obviously in my first couple weeks. I've now been learning to drive for a few months. I'm obviously a lot better. Like, I drive to and from my hometown and this town almost every lesson. In terms of stalling the car, I've now lost count. For a while I couldn't go a lesson without stalling. My lesson I had this morning, I stalled 3 times. Something else I've started learning are all the different maneuvers, like doing U-turns and like 3-point turns and that, and I got the hang of all of them except parallel parking. He taught me how to parallel park last lesson, and when I did it with him talking me through, I did it quite well actually. Then today he tried to get me to parallel park and he didn't speak me through it. Yeah, no. Parallel parking needs a bit of work. And then apart from that, some stuff that has happened in today's lesson, right? I was driving along a road going at like 30 miles an hour, so it's quite a fast road. My instructor's talking to me and he's telling me about like how I need to always be ready to stop because like a car might suddenly pull out of a junction or something. And then he started giving all these random scenarios and examples of reasons I might need to suddenly stop. I'm there driving at 30 miles an hour, and then he's like, you know, Spider-Man might swing across. Who knows, like he might have his webs lower than normal and he might just come across right in front of your car. And I was literally just driving, and in my head I'm like, shut up, don't talk about Spider-Man, I'm going to fangirl and we will crash. The second he mentioned Spider-Man, I'm just like, oh my god, Spider-Man Homecoming, Tom Holland. Fangirling while driving just isn't a good combination. So, you know, like, does my instructor want us to crash? He should not mention Spider-Man in front of me. Then he finally stopped talking about Spider-Man and moved on to another example. What if the Incredible Hulk suddenly landed in front of the car? Do you want to get us killed? Mr. Instructor, sir, don't talk about Marvel while I'm trying to drive. So that happened. One time I held up a police car. They had their flashy lights and stuff and were like trying to get through the crowd. I didn't notice them. They were coming up behind us and I was just driving through the town like, oh, it's a nice day, I can drive. And then the instructor's like, there's a police car behind you. I'm like, what? And I just look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, there's a police car behind us. How do I pull over? So yeah, that's me learning to drive. I can now confidently drive pretty much. Like, I can drive to the town in my hometown no problem whatsoever. Like, I can do roundabouts, junctions, all that sort of stuff. My main issues at the moment are driving through towns when you have to keep stopping, keep starting, and there's all sorts going on. That's when I tend to get really nervous, and then I end up stalling. And I don't know how long it's going to be till I take my test though. Probably a while, because I'm not good enough to drive in a car that doesn't have dual control yet, so I have to do my theory first. I kind of haven't started that. I've brought like a revision pack, so I can do it, but I just haven't started yet. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Basically, I'm learning to drive and it's interesting. It's interesting, but it's getting to a point I'm actually excited for driving lessons now because it's really fun. I actually really enjoy driving. Comment down below if you're also learning to drive. What are your experiences with it? If you can drive, have you got any tips or advice on like driving? Comment and like if you enjoyed, and make sure you subscribe because I'm still trying to hopefully reach 400 subscribers for Christmas, because that would be really awesome. So yeah, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you guys in a new Vlogmas video tomorrow. Goodbye.